Yes, from the start to the finish, here is your trophy. Monster Energy AMA Amateur National Championship at Loretta Lanes is complete. This is the podium. They're already tearing things down, but not as much as usual. There's usually the ATV Dirt Days National, actually the event that comes up after this, but that has been replaced. We're going Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Racing next weekend on this very track. But we'll wrap up Loretta Lanes with this Weege Show, brought to you by the fine folks at Race Tech and their Gold Valves. I want to thank them for being on board for quite some time. I think we're going to have a new sponsor once Pro Motocross starts next weekend, but we'll get into that then. Gold Valves, plusher, better bottoming resistance, better traction, made in the USA. Go to racetech.com. They help get this show off the ground. Much appreciated. Yep, they've got the equipment out because they are going to change this track and turn it into a pro track. That's always been the idea at Loretta's, right? That it would turn into a pro career. This would be the starting for it. And I know, it's kind of weird to have one event determine it all. As I explained in the previous episode of the show, the idea was that it would be an event that could work around the school schedule. That's why there's one event in the summer instead of like 12 rounds of a championship that would be very difficult to complete while in school. And I know that the idea of school has kind of fallen by the wayside for a lot of these riders in the last 39 years since this race started. That's the original plan. And you're still seeing that riders that perform here are taking next level steps in their career. At the top of the list, I think the biggest breakthrough is Levi Kitchen. We'll talk about him. He was in the stock, or as they call them here, limited classes. By the way, yes, they're stock classes for the most part. When I first started at this event, they were stock, and all these parents would go nuts and be like, stock means stock, and they didn't want people to be able to even change grips or handlebars. Grips and handlebars, it's kind of a customization thing, so now we call those classes limited, because they allow for limited modifications. You can change tires, you can change bars. The limited classes were dominated, and I mean dominated, by Levi Kitchen. You might not have even heard of Levi Kitchen before this week. I kind of heard his name here and there, but as he said 2 years ago, he was riding an 85, and then he had a ginormous growth spurt, and now he even looks tall for a 450. Levi Kitchen won all 6 of his motos in the other B classes, those limited classes. Now the big already established names were in the modified classes, which would be 250B, which is modified, and also Schoolboy 2, or Matt LeBlanc, who raced a modified 450. Those are the big names, and they did not disappoint as far as the great battles, the great racing. Kitchen didn't get a chance to race them, but his lap times measured up with everybody, and I have a feeling that he's going to be on an upward trajectory for his career now with the sweep in those stock B classes. Can you believe, look at how gnarly this is. That is gnarly. This is what the guys are gonna have to deal with next week. I know that this track is small and tight compared to a traditional pro track, but it has some of the most amazing dirt, and it's actually surprisingly wide. A little secret, Jeff Russell, who builds a lot of the tracks, maintains a lot of the tracks in Pro Motocross, said actually there are sections of this track, the narrowest sections of this track aren't as narrow, secret as some of the tracks in Pro Motocross. They're gonna add, the reason I walked out here is they're gonna add some distance to the track. See, they're already tuning this up. Then they're gonna steepen a lot of the jumps for the pro race. And then Storyland, which is where they go all the way to the back by that Monster Energy can, they're gonna hang a right and go back over here about where that Racer TV sign, maybe where that Monster Energy truck is, that general area, get more track distance that way, and then go back to the back. So they gotta add some lap time. And the jumps will be steepened, and the bumps will change, the lines will change, just because you've got nothing but the best riders in America. It's pros on 250s and 450s. Track's gonna change, but honestly, I hope it doesn't change too much, because I know that if you're not here, and this is a track that's flat, and it's not that big, it would seem like not the best racetrack, but the raceability, because of those huge bumps I showed you, the way that ride, look at this section right here. You take your guess if you want to go inside in that stuff or outside in that stuff. They use the entire racetrack left to right, and I see that more here than any other event, and that's what we saw in those classes that were stacked. Kitchen, didn't matter what line he was in, he dominated. Hayden Deegan, he won all his motos. Ryder DeFrancesco, he won all of his motos. Max Voland, he won all his motos. In the classes that were evenly matched, we saw some great racing. So in 250B, the modified division, Matt LeBlanc got it done. He won the early motos. He had the nice points lead, and then he admitted he got nervous in the third moto. Still happened to these guys, even that have the factory deals. And he got some arm pump. He was riding too conservatively, and he was only able to get 5th. That was still enough to get the championship, but it was a bit more of a nail biter than he wanted it to be. And that left Schoolboy 2, the other class that was really jammed up with talent. Jet Reynolds used to own this event. He had won 9 championships here on mini cycles. Then he missed the 2018 event. And Nate Thrasher, in his place, had a dominant week. And we could not wait till 2018 when we were going to get Thrasher versus Reynolds. And then both of them were hurt in 2019, and neither of them raced here. So it was good to get a little rematch between them finally in 2020, now on 250Fs. They both had their problems in 250B. Reynolds crashed spectacularly while leading. That was the end of him for that class. And Thrasher on the last lap of the first moto had a problem running into a lapper. That was the end of his title hopes in that class. LeBlanc won it. But in Schoolboy 2, we expected those guys to battle it out. Thrasher versus Reynolds. We've been waiting 2 years to see it. And they were 1-2 in points coming into it. Reynolds ended up crashing while leading. Thrasher had a horrible start. I think a little gamesmanship. Reynolds came over on him out of the gate, which you know is going to happen in a championship scenario. Thrasher's bad start, taking advantage, was Chance Hymas, who was, I think, probably considered 3rd or 4th or maybe even 5th best of that group coming into the week. Chance Hymas, Team Green Kawasaki rider, gets that Schoolboy 2 win. I think he and Kitchen, that is a huge elevator for them to take on the establishment, to establish themselves. Kitchen because he dominated, Hymas because he had to go against guys like Thrasher and Reynolds, and he came out on top. This race does still have a way of changing lives. Hey, thank you. When it all wraps up, we go over here for the closing ceremonies. That's where they hand out the awards. Now, I don't know if they've handed them out yet, but it's pretty obvious where the most coveted award is going to go. And that is the AMA Nikki Hayden Horizon Award, named after the late, great Nikki Hayden, who won, I believe, the first ever Road Racing Horizon Award for the best amateur road racer in America way back in his amateur days. It's pretty obvious that award is going to go to Styles Robertson. Now, Styles was a prodigy on 50s, won some championships, had a couple of lean years, like 2 or 3 years where he didn't dominate, and I was a little worried about what the trajectory for him would be next. He did bounce back and get the 250B title last year, and then he came out in Pro Sport this year and got it done. He faced a little adversity with a really weirdo, messed up start where the 2 card went too fast, and he was barely even ready for the start. He still came back to get second in that one. I think they're giving out the state championship trophy, and California almost always wins it. They almost always get the most titles here, but I'm still upset that Jason Lawrence, who's from my home state of New Jersey, used to always count as a Californian when he was here, so they put it on the entry. It's not from California. There's a lot of guys that aren't from California. LeBlanc is from Louisiana. He's from California now because that's where he trains. Anyway, Robertson also had a moto where he lost his shifter. Besides those 2 motos, the messed up start and the bad shifter, he won 4 of his total 6 motos. He won both Pro Sport titles, and Rockstar Husqvarna surprised him with an entry for the pro race here next weekend. He is going pro. Styles, it went like this at the beginning of his amateur career. It was like this, not terrible, but right in the middle. But right at the end, he is shot back to the top. He rides and trains at the Baker's factory. Mike Brown is actually doing the tutelage for a lot of those kids, and my buddy Seth Rarick. And suddenly Styles Robertson is back on the list as the next guy. He's the guy to watch coming out of here. And a shout out to Mason Gonzalez and Dylan Schwartz, who are also going to race next weekend as well. So we got a couple amateurs coming out. It's the only time you're ever going to have an amateur make his debut at the Loretta's track, because they're not going to race a pro race here, I believe, ever again. So Styles Robertson, spoiler alert, he's going to be the Horizon Award winner and certainly deserving winning those 2 Pro Sport titles.
Styles, congratulations. So I understand you got some news for these guys, Styles. Why don't you fill everybody in on what you're doing about 5 or 6 days from now?
Yeah, I get to race the Pro National next Saturday. Super excited, but it's crazy. This is my first specialty award. I've always been sitting there, trying to win the youth award, trying to win the amateur award, but no, stuck to the plan, and man, it's crazy to win the Horizon Award. It's been a long time, a lot of ups and downs here at the ranch, but no, I can't thank everybody enough in my corner, and yeah.
Bro, how does it feel?
My first specialty award.
That is so crazy to think about. The best one.
Yeah.
I mean, you've watched this. Okay, what was the first year you came? Like, how many years?
So
12
it had
years?
been 06. That was
14 years you've come here.
So yeah, who would have won? I'm not sure.
But you've been here for 14 of these. Did you ever miss one?
No, I missed 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you get it. And you've been given a lot of credit to the whole Baker's Factory deal. I mean, you straight up ride with those guys.
Yeah, no, every day I'm in and out with those guys, and it's been awesome. And yeah, Mike Brown, Eldon Baker said, you know, they got me here. My parents, everybody's been behind me from the start. You know, this is product of their work. You know what I mean? And yeah, so hopefully we can go out there and have some fun next week and see where we end up.
Yeah, you just said you want starts. You just want to see.
Yeah, I just want to see. You know, there's no pressure from the team. Nobody. You know, I don't have to. You know, go win or whatever. And,
right.
And I just want to go good starts and 30 good minutes, or 30 plus 2. But no, I'm excited.
You had great years at the beginning, and then not terrible, but you did miss 1 year.
Right.
Were you ever worried that it was slipping away, or did you feel like, I'll get back on track, just give me my chance?
No, that's just crazy. I had so many ups and downs here.
You did, yeah.
And, you know, like 2016, I didn't even get on the podium. Like, it's crazy to think about. And then coming, you know, last year was a rebuild year from 2018. I missed 2019, won the title, and then honestly, I got a good group that believes in me, and got a good, just feel like I'm surrounded by good people, and it's paying off, obviously. And so, yeah, just keep doing that and keep working, and yeah, hopefully, keep going from here.
So it's a really strange situation to have Loretta's not over, but actually leading to a pro race here, and maybe a little extra pressure on Styles because everyone thinks he's going to have a track advantage. Yeah, ride Stasic. But really, it's not about next week. I have a feeling that's going to feel more like a regular round of Lucas Oil Pro Motocross than we think, and less like it does actually feel here at the amateur race. I know it's a homecoming for a lot of riders, but they're not going to have their chance to hang out in the creek and have all the fun that they used to when they were camping at this event for a week. It's going to be in, out, and race. And I bet you when you see how the track races, it's probably not going to be as weird, even though, again, it doesn't have hills. It's going to feel like a pro national, I think, just like any other. I don't know if Styles or any of those other guys are going to have an actual advantage because they've raced here just this week, but it's just good to have more riders coming to the system. More than ever, there are so many riders in this pipeline. And I just think it's cool that in the COVID year, we finally get back to talking about what we wanted to talk about in this final show, which is racing. Yes, the COVID thing was gnarly to deal with. Yes, the amount of money, which I covered in show 2, being spent in the sport and the pressure is gnarly. But it's just good competition. It's just good racing. Remember the names Styles, Robertson, LeBlanc, Thrasher, Romano, Hymas, and certainly Levi Kitchen working their way through the ranks. At its heart, what this event is supposed to be about is racing and competition, and we managed to get a week of that despite all the other things going on in the world that are weird. And hopefully we continue with some normalcy by having Lucas Oil Pro Motocross right here next weekend.